Alright, folks, bad news. OBS was messed up. The recording got all mucked up. So I'm gonna just re-record it. And it's kind of a blessing in disguise. Hopefully this time I'm gonna be able to make it a little more concise and less yapping, I guess. So let's get right into it. And I'm also gonna record this in little chunks and then stitch them together later, so hopefully OBS doesn't freak the fuck out like it did before. We will see. Crouch canceling. So, crouch canceling is a mechanic where if you get hit by a attack and you crouch cancel it, you reduce the knockback and hit lag of that attack by 0.67 times. And that's all that crouch canceling does. Nothing other than that, nothing fancier other than that. It's just simply reduces knockback and hit lag by that amount. Now, how do you crouch cancel? Well, first of all, let's just really quickly go over some things. This right here is the position. This is the X position. This is the Y position of Fox. Red box here is Fox. Blue box is for Marth. The state represents the state of the character. So you can see I'm walking right now, and I'm in walk middle. Here I'm dashing and running, jumping. Shield for some reason is called unknown. I think my favorite one is auto for teetering. It's really silly. But anyways, main point of this is you can only crouch cancel if you're in one of two states, which is either squat, as you can see here, or squat wait, which is when you start like fully crouching. So basically just on your way to like crouching down, and while you're crouching down, you're able to crouch cancel. If you get hit while I say release the stick, and I'm in squat recovery, I think it stands for, and you're standing back up, you won't be able to CC during this because you are not in squat or squat wait. And also, just ignore this Figgy part. That's just melee jank, because it uses Figgy animations or something like that. I don't know. But that's all it basically is that as long as you're either squatting down or fully crouching, you can crouch cancel a move. Otherwise, you cannot. Which means that if you're, say, like, dashing and then holding down, well, you can't crouch cancel because you can't crouch yet. You have to wait until you're out of your dash, and then you can start crouching. Or, if you're running, then you can too. But, for example, you're not going to be able to crouch out of, like, landing with a bear, or jabbing, or down tilting, whatever. Mostly only when you're standing around, or just in whatever kind of position you can crouch in. So, that being said, it reduces knockback and hit lag by that amount. Well, what is hit lag? What is knockback? And we're also going to talk about something called tumble. So, first of all, let's talk about knockback. Knockback is really simple. You get hit by a move and you get knocked away. The way Melee does that is it has this crazy formula and all these variables, and for the purposes of this, the only thing we really need to worry about and think about is percent and damage. P and D. So, for example, if you here is an example using Falco's Dare. By doing all of the formula stuff. Oh my goodness. By doing all of the formula stuff on Fox at 80%, it does 113 knockback units, where if you hit him at 0, plugging in that formula, it would only do 42 knockback. So both the damage the move does and the percentage is a factor. Pretty self-explanatory. It's just, knockback. Hit lag is where when a move connects, bam. Notice how both me and Marth are kind of frozen in place for a little bit. Neither of us are really moving, and then the hit lag ends, and now I'm moving again. You can even see this where I'm still in my attack air N, or neutral air, and Marth is in damage N2, which I believe is what hit lag register has. Oh wait, no, that's just the damage animation. Ignore that. But either way, hit lag, get hit by a move, get frozen for a little bit of time. This does two main things. One, it's a nice way to react to and confirm that you've hit a move. Gives you like a little bit of pause before the move continues or the action continues to be like, oh, I hit the nair. And also it allows the opponent to SDI, but we will get to SDI later. Only real thing to note about hit lag, here's the formula. As you can see, C here is actually stands for crouch canceling, so that's why crouch canceling impacts, impacts hit lag. But also there's this E part, which stands for electric. So moves that have an electric property, which are, say, Falcon Knee, a lot of Pikachu's moves, they do an extra 1.5 hit lag, and only to the victim. So, for example, if Falcon hits you with his knee, you will take 1.5 extra hit lag, but he will not incur that extra hit lag. So, for example, when I hit with this Fox Nair, we both take the same amount of hit lag, so neither of us has any sort of, like, distinct advantage or, like, anything like that for those freeze frames. We're in the freeze frames for the same amount of time. Whereas Falcon's knee would put you in more freeze frames than he himself would be. So, that's basically hit lag. And then finally, tumble. So what the heck is tumble? So tumble is when you get hit by a move. Right here I'm going to hit Marfid Zero with my Nair. Goes up in the air. And then, oh, hang on, he's programmed to jump out. Let me change that. Make him do nothing. Hit Marth. He's doing his thing in the air a little bit. And when he then collides with a surface, either a wall or the ground in this case, he just lands normally. And you can even see that if I'll actually turn off the hitboxes. You can tell that someone landed normally, or I can, for the rest of this, I'll just refer to it as a soft landing. Or like soft impact, either one. He lands, and it's as simple as that. Why is it not showing the... anyway. He lands, and he does his thing. So that's just like a normal landing, what you kind of expect. You can even see when he lands, he's still in this like damage, and then he's just in wait, because he was in hit stun, now he's out of hit stun. It's as simple as that. However, if a move does a certain amount of knockback, specifically more than 80 units of knockback, it will cause a character to go into tumble. So what that is if I... Oops, that's Fox %. If I take Marth's % here, and I'm going to put it at an extreme example, and I'll make him... I'll make him DI, it's like inwards. You'll see he gets hit. And rather than being in a kind of just like, ouch, I got hit kind of state, see how he's kind of like reeling back and it's like, oh, damn, like that really hurt. And then he finally, once he's out of hit stun, he gets put into damage fall. That is what tumbling is. So this, at this percentage, because the move is... You know, with the percentage and the damage, etc., this formula spits out 80 or more as the number, that many knockback units. He gets put in a tumble. So why does tumble matter? Like, how does it really impact you? Well, what's important about it is that, as you saw at 0, I hit him, he collides with the ground, and he just kind of, you know, handles it, lands on his feet, nothing crazy. But if I increase it to, say, 50%, this is now doing enough damage to do more than 80 degrees of knockback, and that's going to put him in the tumble. And now, oh my god, you fucking idiot. Let me put him in a none. As you can see, I'm mad. Okay, anyways, I hit him. Please work. Oh my god. And now, because he's in this tumble state, when he collides with something, whether it's a wall or the ground, etc., he's not going to just like softly land on the ground. He gets put into a knockdown state, which this is what allows you to tech, and also if he, say, missed the tech here, that's what would put him into a knockdown, where he, you know, then gets on the ground and then can get up attack, etc., etc. But that's the difference that tumble makes. Now, why this is important, we will go over later, but all you really need to know is that if the formula spits out below 80, they don't get put into this tumble state. They don't have to tech, they just land softly on the ground, etc. If it ends up above 80, they have to tech. They'll get knocked down when they land on the ground, etc., etc. So that is everything to go over, pretty much. Oh, and then staling is pretty simple. Just because staling reduces your damage. For example, if I go back to the calculator, I can increase the staling here, and now it goes from 7.65 damage to 6.6. That's going to impact the knockback because damage is lower, therefore the knockback will also be lower. But it's usually nothing crazy. Like, for example, let me refresh this page, and I'll do Fox. Do Fox Nair at 80 on another Fox. Fully. Let me do the clean hit. Fully unstale is going to do 12 damage, and it will do. We'll do a total of 131 knockback units, and then in an extreme example where you somehow have 9 staled nairs, we'll do the same calculation, and now it's only 124. So it can definitely make a significant difference in the knockback, for sure, but nothing like crazy significant. It's not something extreme. I'd say staling is more important for like frame advantage and stuff on shield, etc. But for the purposes of this, it is still a factor to at least keep in mind, because what it could potentially do is if you were, say, at a threshold where hitting someone with a move would put them into tumble normally, but if it was staled enough, the knockback would go below that 80 knockback threshold and then don't tumble anymore. That's something to keep in mind, but it all just depends on the context of the move, how staled it is, your situation you're in the match, etc., etc. All just depends. So that is crouch canceling covered. Next, let's talk about SDI. So, SDI. What's up with that? During hit lag, you can move a little bit. So, for example, I'll just take this Marth and oops. I'll take this Marth and forward smash. I get hit by the attack, I go into a little bit of hit lag, then I get knocked away, hit stun, etc., all that jazz. So I'll play this back. So what SDI is during this hit lag, with the exception of the first frame of hit lag in which you are not allowed to SDI, it will not do anything if you do it on the very first frame. But every frame after that, it will take your coordinate from your control stick. So for example, in this instance, let's say I do fully to the left, which is 1 and 0. It will take those and multiply it by 6 and send me in that direction that many units. So for example, you can do, I'm going to hold left right now. It will multiply that by 6. 1 times 6 is 6. And so this should go from -6 to about -12. And it does exactly that. Whereas if I, say, did diagonal, I could do, it should do 0.7, multiply that by 6, and then it will send me in that direction by multiplying both of these. I don't know if the math adds up for that. It probably does. I'm not going to calculate it right now. But anyways, it moves you a little bit. And you can do it during all hit lag frames except for the very first one. So boom, boom, boom. I'm like teleporting like crazy. I'm like Wizrobe right now with that shit. Very simple. But something to keep in mind with SDI is you are only allowed to, there are only 3 valid types of SDI input. And what I mean by that is that the 3 types are neutral to cardinal, neutral to diagonal, and cardinal to diagonal. What that means is if I go from the stick being neutral to a cardinal direction, so up, left, right, down, that counts as a valid input. If I do neutral to diagonal, so neutral to top left, bottom right, that also counts. And if I do a cardinal direction to a adjacent diagonal, that also counts as a valid input. However, diagonal to a cardinal does not count. That is an invalid SDI input. so I can demonstrate that. First of all, when I get hit here, I'm not pressing anything on my controller right now. You'll see my stick, these numbers aren't moving. I'm not pressing any buttons right now. I get hit, and notice how Fox still kind of like jitters around a little bit. He still like kind of wobbles back and forth. That's not SDI. That is just the animation of getting hit causes you to wiggle around a little bit. You can actually tell this because, as you can see, while I get hit here, even though I'm kind of wiggling around and moving, my position in the game doesn't actually change at all. In fact, you can even see it with here. Some of you might be familiar with the ECB triangle. Your character's model kind of moves around, but the ECB stays in place, so your position stays the same. But the main point in all of this is that we can actually demonstrate, so I'm going to go from neutral to the left, and that makes me go a little bit. Now I'm at a cardinal, I can go to a diagonal direction, so I'm going to go to up left. Bam, changes the position, that counts. But now that I'm at a diagonal, if I go left again, which is diagonal to cardinal, that's an invalid input. I won't be able to shift myself at all, so I'm going to hold left, go to the next frame, and as you can see, the position did not change at all. It might have looked like I kind of moved a little bit there, but that's just the animation of the character kind of jittering around that caused that. I'm not actually moving at all because that was a invalid input. So you can only do these 3 types of inputs for an SDI to count. And then finally, the last bullet point to go over is cannot transition from an air state to a ground state. So what do I mean by that? Right now, if I go up in the air to my SDI, and then I'm in the air right now and I try to go down, I get stuck on the ground. I can't go into the ground, and I can't like go from being in the air to all of a sudden just like being grounded or something like that, and like go from being in the air to just like standing on the ground. I'm still in like hit lag and everything like that. So SDI can't do that. So that is a limitation of SDI that you have to keep in mind. However, what can let you do that is ASDI. ASDI does allow you to do that. So now that we understand what ASDI is, we can explain what SDI, or sorry, now that we know what SDI is, we can explain what ASDI is. All right. So now we understand what ASDI is, or sorry, I keep mixing them up. Confusing names, man. Oh, anyways, we now understand what SDI is. So let's talk about ASDI. ASDI is automatic smash DI, and what that means is that on the frame after hit lag ends, you are automatically shifted in whatever direction you are holding on your control stick. So whatever direction you are holding, you don't have to time it, you don't have to flick it, anything like that. Just by holding whatever direction it is, you will move in that direction, but only half the distance of a regular SDI input. So in this case, it's only multiplying it by 3. So for example, we'll go back. I get hit. See, that was a regular SDI that multiplied it by, or multiplied by 6. I went 6 units to left, but now 1, 2, 3, 4. Hit lag ends, and boom, just from holding left, I got automatically shifted to the left just a little bit. Only half the amount of regular SDI, but it still counts. And it is still useful because you don't have to time or anything, you can just do it. Another thing to note about SDI is the C-stick. So the C-stick has a unique property where it overrides the direction of the control stick. So let's say I am holding left, and normally, like we showed last time, after the hit lag ends, I should be shifted to the left about 3 units or so, only half the distance of a regular SDI automatically. But if I hold up on the C stick, even though I'm holding left on the analog stick, it worked me up a little bit automatically, because it looked at this and said, well, you're holding left on the control stick, but the C stick is holding up, so we're going to read whatever direction the C stick is holding. And that is all that the C stick does. It does not provide any extra distance or anything like that. All it does is override what direction your ASDI goes in. But this is useful because, for example, I could DI in a direction, but let's say I don't want to ASDI in that direction for whatever reason, depending on the situation. This will let you DI one way and then ASDI in a different direction independently from each other, which makes it very useful for, it depends on the context. There's all sorts of stuff you can do with it, but that is like an important property of it, is that no matter what you're doing, let's say you got caught in, I don't know, like dashing back or something like that, or you were in the middle of, I don't know, like charging an up B or something like that, you can still, regardless of what your control stick is doing, you can still determine your ASDI direction with the C stick. And this also works if you don't do anything with the control stick and just use the C stick, because it is seeing this as like, oh, you're not holding anything, but you're holding something on here, so we'll select this direction instead. So now that we've gone over that, the most important difference with ASDI compared to SDI is that, unlike with SDI, ASDI does let you go from being in the air to on the ground. Now, to more easily show what I mean by that, I will put this percentage down, and instead I'm going to record Marth hitting me with a forward air. Bam. Hits me with the forward air. I think I got the L cancel. I actually don't know. We just try it again. PM has spoiled me, as you can tell. Alright, bam, that should be, and then I'll just have him like shield or something after. There we go. Easy. So, what do I mean when I say like an air to ground state? What's going on with that? What I mean is that, see when I get hit by this Marth forward air, because it hits at basically a like 45-degree angle, I'm gonna get hit up ever so slightly into the air, even at 0%. See, I go just a little bit into the air, but then pretty quickly come back down. I'm in hit stun this whole time, but since I was not hit with 80 units or more of knockback, I don't go into tumble. I instead do this little soft landing, and then, it's not too big a deal. But Marth is still actionable before me because I had all that hit stun to go through versus his only little, landing lag of his move. However, like I mentioned, now I'm going to hold down. And what this is going to do is that the hit lag is going to end, and it's going to activate ASDI in the downward direction. What is that going to do? Well, look at that. I just immediately snapped to the ground because during that first frame where I was only like 0.7 above the ground, it ASDI's downwards, and I immediately come in contact with the floor. And since ASDI is allowed to transition from the air to the ground, I do that. I go from the air to the ground. Now, what's important about this is that, like I mentioned earlier, since I'm not in tumble, I just land in this kind of normal soft landing, I guess you could call it. But what's useful about this is that, notice how I didn't go into any hit stun, any knockback like that. All I did was just kind of immediately snap myself to the ground in this sort of soft landing state. So this is called a floor hug. It's essentially where you are using ASDI to shift yourself downwards from the air, hit the ground, and since you're not in tumble, you do this soft little landing, which means, since you see these kind of little sparks here, which is also the same that you'll see when you auto-cancel something, or just land on the ground normally, or even from, say, a laser, since that also auto-cancels these little sparks, you're only in 4 frames of lag. So, for example, I'm going to jump right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm holding the shield button right now. Bam, instant comes out. It's only 4 frames of lag. It's very little, almost, nothing. So compare me getting hit by this. I have to get hit, go through all this hit stun, land back down, and then finally, once those 4 frames of my little soft landing are done, I can act. But Marth can just shield it or something like that. I'm in hit stun for too long. I'm stunned for too long. But if I floor hug it, because I am essentially skipping all of that hit stun because during my knockback, I'm just going from the air and kind of snapping myself into the ground. I'm now immediately on the floor, so now I just need to go through those 4 frames of lag from my soft landing, and meanwhile he is still in. He hasn't landed yet, and then when he lands, he needs to go through all his lag from landing with forward air, even with the L cancel. So now I'm actionable, and he's not. I can shine him, or I can jab him, or I can, you know, depending on. I actually don't know if there's enough time to do this. Yeah, if you're quick enough, you can up smash. Oh, so ignore this frame advantage thing that's bugged right now. So ignore it. But what's very powerful about this floor hug is that, as you can see, sure, compared to just like shielding it or something, I had to, you know, take damage, but I'm able to act so quickly because, as you can see, with this, I have to wait until all my shield stun is done, and then I can only do an attack that you can normally do out of shield, or out of a jump rather, which is aerials and up smash, you know, etc. So floor hugging not only lets you have more options, but it's even faster compared to just shielding it, at the cost of course, you have to tank the move in the first place and take that damage. So there is risk reward to it, but overall it is a very powerful option to be able to just kind of tank through someone's move and just hit them right back. Bam. So that's what a floor hug is. Now, what can you use a floor hug for? Well, obviously, as we just saw, you can use it to take an attack and then counter it. I did it a little too slow there, but you get the idea. Another thing you can do with it is, let's set up a situation in which I whiff a move and I'm not able to shield in time. So, for example, I'm going to set up this Marv to just jump and forward air me just like before. And let's say we were like playing neutral during this. I don't know, we were like dashing around, doing our thing, just pretend. And then let's say I tried to run up and up smash him. Oops, I accidentally hit him. You'll see right here, by the time he hits me with the fair, you know, I'm holding shield this whole time. I'm still in up smash lag. I'm not able to shield in time. I can't do anything. So I can't shield. So it's like, well, shoot. I guess I whiffed my move. I'm just going to get hit by it. There's nothing I can do. Well, there actually is something you can do. You can floor hug it. Because since ASDI and SDI apply during any time during hit lag, aka whenever you pretty much get hit by a move, I can floor hug this right now. So rather than taking all this knockback, I'm going to get knocked away, and then Morph now has the advantage. He can maybe grab me, he can down tilt me, you know, whatever he's has enough time to do. I can floor hug it. And now, once again, I'm only in those little 4 frames of waiting, and now I can counter. So it's a very powerful defensive option because, unlike shielding or crouch canceling like we talked about earlier, you can floor hug in pretty much any state that you're in, which makes it extremely strong. But again, you do have to tank through the attack, so you have to consider the risk reward. But in a situation like this, where there is literally the option is either just get hit or get hit and be able to attack back anyway, there's no reason to just not do it. It's strictly just better because you're taking the damage and getting hit either way, so just go for it. And then also, another thing that floor hugging can be useful for is to actually survive for a little bit longer. So, I'm gonna set Fox to do like 65%. Hopefully this works. Once again, nice and simple. Morph is just gonna jump up, forward air, and hit him. Boom. Maybe I'll do. Shouldn't do 100%. So there we go. Here, I'll do it here. So let's say I'm right here, and I'm gonna... Okay, finally. Alright, finally. I'm gonna jump with Marth, and forward air, bam, I hit Fox. And it's like, oh shoot, I fell off stage. What if he could just like run up and now he's hit me off stage. This sucks, this is not good. But what I could do is I could fight. I could floor hug this, and now instead of being just like knocked up in the air and away and then off stage, I can hit right into the ground and I won't get knocked off stage. See there, I'll just like grab ledge, just like that. And you can even, it's gonna be kind of hard to time. If you're good, which I am clearly not. Oops. Oh my good lord. You can even tech it, which depending on the move, situation, everything might be better or worse. All depends. The reason I was messing with this silly down smash right here is that the way teching works is that if you normally you have to press the trigger 20 frames before you collide with something, but that actually does not count during hit lag. So I hit the trigger right now and I'm going to floor hug and see how, even though that was clearly within 20 frames, it doesn't work because it doesn't count in hit lag. So you would either have to like do it beforehand, which is tough to demonstrate here because if you hit the trigger you're just going to end up shielding the attack, or if I say just like hold the floor hug the whole time by doing C stick down, I might accidentally hit Marth here. So it's a little hard to demonstrate, but here there we go. Like as you can see, so teching won't count during hit lag, so that is something to keep in mind, that if you're trying to floor hug a move and tech it after say like whiffing a move or something like that, you'll either have to be like holding the ASDI down this entire time and then like trigger ahead of time to be within the window, or alternatively, if you do like end up reacting and just holding down in response to like actually getting hit and being in hit lag, you can tech, but you have to literally time it perfectly because it won't count during hit lag. You're gonna have to hit it the very frame you get out of hit lag, which in this situation would be frame perfect because you instantly are hitting the ground. So it all just depends, but it's something to keep in mind that because of how teching works like that, it's just something that you gotta try to remember. So that's some of the things you can do with floor hugging. As you can see, it's a very powerful option because every character can do it, and you can counterattack very quickly, quicker than like say shielding. You can do it in like pretty much any state that you're getting hit from, even if you're like recovering from something or etc., etc. All you have to be able to do for it to work is that within the first frame after you exit hit lag, so like your first frame of getting knocked back, as long as you are within 3 units above the ground, you can go from the air to the ground. Because if you take a value of 1 of fully down on the stick and then multiply that 3, you'll go 3 units down. So if say a move hits you up like way too high or like too high, where on the first frame of knockback you're 3 units above the ground, it won't work. But that's all that matters for the floor hug to basically activate, is that within that first frame of knockback, you need to be close enough to the ground that you can ASDI downward into it and kind of snap to it. So now that we know what floor hugging is, how can we, say, beat it ourselves? Because not just Fox can floor hug, so can Marth. And let's go over that. So the first way you can beat floor hugging is grabbing. Because whether they are crouching and trying to do a, like, say, regular crouch cancel, or trying to floor hug, either way is going to be beaten with a grab, because they never enter an aerial state in the first place. They simply just are on the ground, you grab them, and that beats it. So if someone's been holding down a lot and you're getting kind of tired of it, you're getting kind of tired of, like, I don't know, like, here, I will set Marv to none, and then I'll have him ASDI down so he can floor hug. If you're getting kind of tired of that, then I'll even have it set up where right now I say have him grab immediately after. He just, like, grabs me out of it. Ow. Ow. I'm getting so annoyed. You can just grab him. Because, like, CC, floor hug, you can't do anything like that against a grab. It just beats it. But obviously, you can't just grab over and over again. You'll get called out for it. You can't keep using the same option over and over, but it is a way to beat it. Next, we have frame advantage. So, something to keep in mind is that if we break it down frame by frame, I'm going to jump. I'm going to hit Marth. Bam. We're going through hit lag. He floor hugs it, so now he's only in his 4 frames of landing, and I still have to get all the way to the ground and then go through my landing animation of Nair. It's not going to work. Before the time I'm actionable, his grab comes out, he already grabs me. What can I do? Well, what I could do is that if I hit low enough, I messed up. If I hit low enough, bam. So hit lag is about to end. I immediately land on the ground, so now I'm going through my, I believe Fox Nair is 7 frames of landing lag. So, and he has to first go through his 4 frames, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the 7 frames for his grab to come out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, then it would come out. But see, I'm actionable first. So in this situation, I could jab him, I could shine him, spot dodge it. I think roll doesn't come out fast. Yeah, roll doesn't come out fast enough to work. But because even though he did floor hug it and that made him actionable very quickly, I still have the frame advantage in this situation just due to the way I timed my move and all of the frame data works out. So floor hugging doesn't always automatically allow you to counteract. It all depends. But this is also a very specific example because that was a perfectly low to the ground as frame advantaged as possible Nair, and Nair is already such a good move because of its low lag and high stun, etc., etc. If I say try to there we go. If I say try to do this same thing again, but all I'm gonna do is just I will do a bear as low as I possibly can. Bam. L cancel. Because I'm in just a little bit more lag because of the back air having a little bit more of that landing lag. Well, okay, actually, bear also does work. I forgot. But see how it was way closer and I had to literally have a perfectly to the bottom, immediately land, back air, and then instantly time a perfectly frame perfect shine, because if I hit this 1 frame later, he would have grabbed me. So as you can see, it was a lot not as safe or not as like easy to do. So it all just depends. But for the most part, unless you were like perfectly spacing and like landing with like super precision where it's like basically perfect, for the most part, just a standard, like, I won't even frame advance this. I will literally just like try to hit him. You know, you'll get hit out of it, or whatever it is. And also, he doesn't have to grab. He could jab, which I think comes out faster and hit you. Maybe like up B, something like that. He probably doesn't want to, because then he's going to be in a lot of lag and you'll just hit him. But it all depends. Because, like, for example, in this instance, it actually would be a pretty good idea, because he can, where is it? Up B, And since I'm at such a like high percentage, sure he's in a lot of lag after, but I have to worry about like all this, you know, recovering back to stage and everything. So it all depends on the context, but if you have the frame advantage, you could hit them before their counter option comes out. And again, they also don't have to necessarily do a counter option. They could just like dash back, shield, you know, whatever it is. That's what makes Melee fun. That's what creates the nuance of Melee, I guess you could say. Cause tumble. Although before I get to that, another option is to potentially just simply outspace it. So for example, if he goes for a grab after this floor hug, but I like run past and nair him like this, the grab is going to whiff because I'm all the way over here, or even something just like hitting him, you know, etc. Stuff like that will work. So next, causing tumble. Well, actually, I guess another one real quick, because we kind of just demonstrated it here. I'm going to hit him with this Fox up air, and what you'll see is that yeah. I'm going to hit him, and he's going to try to floor hug this one, but notice that, bam, he techs it. Well, wait a minute, why did he tech it? Like, why didn't he go into his little soft landing, and from there, like, try to counteract me? Well, that's because at the percent he's at, and the amount of damage that my move did, it caused him to go into tumble. So, for example, if I put him at 46, and then hit him with nair, he's going to try to floor hug this, but this is going to put him in tumble, because it does more than 80 knockback, and he's going to be put in knockdown state, so he can tech it, for sure. But he's not able to like counter with a grab or an immediate option or anything like that, because he's not going to get that soft landing. This will put him in the tumble, so he's going to have to deal with knockdown. But compared to, say, if I disable this and just have him not even DI'd at all and just like fly away, I can hit him and then like hit him again, or potentially like follow up and try to tech chase him, you know, whatever, put pressure on him. It still potentially can be better for him to, say, tech this, and now he's in a much better position. So I believe that that is also still called a floor hug, but because it caused tumble, he's not able to do some like immediate counter option, or like he's not as crazy frame advantage. It's still, compared to just getting hit by itself, is better than nothing, and does definitely do something. He could even like mix up his tech or do like a miss tech and try to like mess me up, everything like that. But he's not gonna be able to do a crazy like counter attack or anything. So knowing your percents and when moves will cause a character to go into tumble is very useful, because you'll know that they can't floor hug down and counter you with like an immediate hit or anything like that. Next we have denying an air state. So what do I mean by that? Like we said earlier, the whole way that floor hugging works is by they get hit into the air. Actually, real quick, speaking of up smash, let me actually check something. There we go. This is another thing I forgot to include. For example, the reason why he's not floor hugging this right now and it's not working. Let me check. Yep, ASDI is set to down. It doesn't work. Is that, notice how on the first frame he's on 1.5, but what that means is that he was originally on 4.5 or so, and because him floor hugging down was not able to get him to the ground, like he was in the air and then he goes down with the ASDI, but it doesn't reach the ground, so he's not able to floor hug it because he can't reach the ground. So moves that send upward can potentially beat floor hugging, but it depends on the percent, because as you can see, this is at the percent where it causes enough knockback to send him too far up too quickly that in that one frame he has to kind of shoot down. He just can't make it to the ground in time. But if I say put him at 0, then it's not going to put him high enough, and he can simply just, bam, floor hug it. Although, at 0%, I believe this does enough knockback that it's going to put him into tumble, and so, yeah. He's not going to be able to do his soft landing counter, but he can still tech it, which compared to, you know, not, where you could, you know, something like that, that's very not true, but, like, you get the idea. This is still a lot safer from him if he, like, potentially, like, techs it or something like that. So, depending on the percent, there's another way. So that's one of the ways with angles that you can do it. The other way is... so that way was shooting them high enough too quickly that they can't get back to the ground in that one frame. The other is never putting them into the ground in the first place. So, for example, I'm going to hit him with Shine. Now, Shine, let me pull up the Fox frame data for Shine. Reflector. All right. Sends at a angle of 0. Now, what that means is it just sends directly horizontally. So you can see, I'll actually pull it up here on the calculator as well, because a nice thing is, it's a little hard to see, but you can see it shows a rightwards trajectory. If I change the direction, oh wait, no, it doesn't. But either way, it sends fully horizontally. And so, they are not able to floor hug this because they never enter the air in the first place. They go from being on the ground to being on the ground, so even if they're trying to floor hug it, they're just not able to because it never sends them in the air to the first place, so there's no way to do that air to ground transition, and therefore it just completely prevents the floor hug. Now, because of Shine having set knockback, someone like Marth doesn't like fall down because of his weight and other factors like that. He only just slides because it doesn't do 80 knockback versus him, and therefore does not put him in the tumble. Where meanwhile, someone like Falco, because of their weight, he, even at 0, does get knocked down because combined with his weight and other factors, this does more than 80 knockback, and therefore puts him in the tumble, so he can tech it. And if he tries to ASDI down it, he can, as you can see, kind of floor hug this, although Shine at low percents like this sends like so little forward and everything like that that it really doesn't make a difference. To demonstrate, I'll say put it at, I'll just put him at a crazy high percent like this. Yeah, it's sending him completely horizontally, but in tumble, and so he's just already colliding with it anyway. So as you can see, ASDI down doesn't really make a difference, but it's something to keep in mind. So we talked about sending horizontally because you don't let them enter the air state. We talked about sending them upwards fast enough that they can't come back down to the ground quick enough with the SDI. And then finally, the other option we can do is using a move that sends downwards. So Fox's drill, aka his dare, sends at an angle of 290. And what that means is that it sends downwards. So if we hit Marth and he tries to ASDI down, it's not really going to do anything because he is going from being in the ground to being pushed like further downwards. But the game is like, well, wait a minute, you're already on the ground. We can't like push you like inside the ground, so we're just going to keep you where you are. You're just going to stay at 0. So you're never going to enter the air in the first place, and therefore you cannot floor hug this. So as you can see, Fox specifically actually has a lot of different options that can beat floor hugging because he has a move that sends downwards and therefore prevents it because they never go into the air. A move that sends fully horizontally, so they can't because they never enter the air. And then finally a move that sends vertically upwards quickly enough that on that first frame they are too high up and aren't able to. Not every character is obviously as blessed as this, but these are various ways that taking advantage of the way that the angles and trajectory of moves knockback works to your advantage. Although it should be noted that something like Fox Drill, let me do this. Something like Fox Drill will work even until like absurd percents. Let me speed this up to crazy percent. You know, even at like you know, literally the max percent like this move does set knockback, so it's always going to be exactly the same amount of knockback no matter when you hit it. And that's why, again, you can never floor hug it, because it's never going to put you in tumble, because it will never do enough knockback to tumble you. However, something like Falco's there, which actually does scale the knockback depending on your percent. As you can see there, only does 12, or doesn't do a lot of knockback at 0, whereas if I say crank this to, you know, 132, does way more knockback, and then get hit. So here I'm going to try to floor hug it, and as you can see, it doesn't really work. Because again, this is an instance of it being something where I believe if I check, I can see, yep, I go too high too quickly. Yeah, just barely too. Because if I look at this, my Y position is there, so I was barely able to do it. Because again, this isn't the position it would normally send me at. This is what I was after the ASDI sending me downwards, but it was not enough to reach the ground. However, I believe if I scroll this back a little bit, let's do like 70. So this should do enough knockback to put me in the tumble. Yep, sure does. But normally this will pop me up, because moves like this that send you downwards, even though like earlier we were like, oh well, wait, you're already on the ground, it has enough knockback. There's kind of like a special property to it where it like bounces you upwards and everything like that. So if I floor hug this, yep, this will work. And I believe the main difference is that when he was hitting me at 0, I was not going into tumble, and so I was just going from 0 to basically still at 0. It wasn't really like sending me far enough back. There wasn't really enough knockback to create that bounce effect. In fact, I think tumble is the difference that creates the bounce effect, but I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to fact check that later. But this is causing me tumble, and therefore it's going to cause that bounce, which will put me in the air just a little bit. In fact, I can probably check. Hit lag ends, bam, I'm at 2.4. Well, wait a minute, that's within 3. So I can floor hug it. Bam. Now I won't get popped up, and if I, in fact, I'm going to press the trigger and time a tech, boom, I tech it. Which, of course, Falco will still be able to punish me here, because by the time, you know, I'm vulnerable right now, he can shine me, he can do whatever, grab me, blah, blah, blah. But compared to just being knocked up, pause, compared to just being bounced up, and just he'll hit me with like an aerial or something like that, it's still a more advantageous position. So for the most part, a downward sending move like that will, if it does not cause tumble, you cannot floor hug it, but if it does cause tumble, you will be able to floor hug it. I think is a good general theme. Because, for example, I'll go back to Marth, and I will just record myself holding down this whole time. Play it back. I forgot I have to do control. There we go. Yep, this move that also sends downwards, but it doesn't cause tumble, so floor hugging won't do anything. And I believe that... Oops. I'm going to hold up the entire time this time, and then... Yeah, that also won't do anything, because you're just going from the ground to more above. Oh, wait, I did fair instead of... No, I won't do anything either. Alright. I'm getting caught in doing my own labbing right now. I have a tutorial to teach. Jeez. But yeah, anyways, those are some of the main ways to counter floor hugging yourself, which are grabbing somebody, frame advantage, causing tumble, so therefore they can't do the soft land and counter back. They can only just tech it or something like that, and then denying the air state to begin with, which can either be done with downwards, so they don't enter the air, fully horizontal, they don't enter the air, or upwards quickly enough that they're too high above the ground on that first frame to reach back down. Okay, one final thing to go over with ASDI and floor hugging and all that is the Sakurai angle. You might have heard this before and might have gotten a little confused by it, because it is admittedly a little confusing if you don't really know about it. So let's go over it. Just gonna Google it real quick. Sakurai angle. Bam. Right. So specifically for melee, here are the values. So how exactly does this work? So some moves in melee, for example, I believe both Marth Fair, yep, 361, and Fox Nair, there it is, 361. So their angle is set to an angle of 361 degrees, which you might be, well, wait a minute. There's no such thing as a 361st, like, angle on a circle. Like, what are you talking about? That doesn't work. So here's the way it works. When a move is coded with that property of 361, which is known in the community as the Sakurai angle, here's how it works. If the opponent, when you hit them with that move, was in the air, they get sent at a 45-degree angle, so just whoosh, up right, up left, whatever. However, if they get hit on the ground, there's a special condition. If the move does 32 or less knockback, it will send them at an angle of 0, aka fully horizontally. But if it does more than 32 knockback, it will send them at an angle of 44 degrees. So essentially, if it's more than 32 knockback, they'll be sent at the same angle as if they got hit in the air, whereas if it did less, they'll get sent fully horizontal. So we can actually demonstrate this using Marth and Fox once again. Let me just turn these on real quick. Bam. So now, if... let me also make him not DI and not do any of these other doodads. So, I'm going to hit him at 0. Bam. And you're going to see Marth is going to kind of go upwards a little bit. It's kind of hard to tell, but that was a 44-degree angle or so, and then he comes back down. We can even do it on like a more extreme case where I'm going to hit him here, and he won't DI it at all. Bam, 45 degrees, because it was over 32 knockback, 32.1 or more knockback, essentially. However, check this out. What if I have him at 0, and I'm going to hit him with this really late nair? Huh. He, like, didn't exit the ground at all. He stayed on the ground the whole time. You can even see his position stayed at 0 the whole time. So if I set him up to do a floor hug real quick, you'll see that if I hit him with this strong one, floor hugs it. But if I hit him with this quote-unquote weak late one, he's not able to, because it sends fully horizontally, and therefore he does not exit the air, or he does not go into the air and can't DI floor hug down onto the ground. So why does this work? The reason this works is because if we look at Fox's clean hit of Nair, I'm going to have him hit it. And then that does 100 and... Whoops. No, it is not. I was going to say that is entirely wrong. It does... In total, it will do 40 knockback. That is greater than 32, so it is going to send... And he is on the ground, and therefore it's going to send him at that 44-degree angle. We can even see that here, where... I'll zoom in a little bit. You know, it barely sends him anywhere, but it still does. But if I hit him with this late hit of Nair, because it does 9 damage and less damage with the knockback formula, less knockback, you will see he is now only going to take, because of the lower damage, 25 knockback units. And so therefore, he'll... Therefore, it was less than 32. He will get sent at a 0 or fully horizontal direction, and you can see that here. Does not get into the air, cannot floor hug it. So that's an example of how moves with the Sakurai angle can change depending on how much damage they're doing, which, you know, factors in scaling, factors in all sorts of stuff. Because, for example, I could do, I believe, if I do a clean hit of Fox Nair, which will do... Wait, will it? Oh, it just barely does. Oh, that's because, even though that, for example, does less damage than the unscaled, like, late hit of Fox Nair, it still is doing more knockback, and the reason for that is due to the way knockback is calculated. It uses both the base knockback and knockback growth in this formula, and I believe here's the clean hitbox, here's the late hitbox. Yeah, this has less base knockback, and so that's what's making the difference. But anyways, that's getting super technical into it. All that matters is that depending on the damage, the move, where you're hitting it, your opponent's percent, etc., there are times where, because of the way the Sakurai angle works, they might only get sent fully horizontally, in which they won't be able to floor hug. So, a potential way to be Amorph floor hugging, since this Nair won't work, is to actually just hit him with this Nair. Let me see real quick if, does he have time to say, like, grab me? If I do it right, anyway, if I'm not bad. So, for example, see, like, something like that works. But it's not infallible, because, obviously, he could react and shield in time, he could dash away, he could, you know, all sorts of stuff. But just something to keep in mind. But this also is very situational for the most part, because, as you can see, at literally 0%, it is already doing... Oh, wait, whoops. I need to do the... Let me just refresh this. Fox, Nair, clean, that, Marth, 0. Oh, wait, sorry, I need to do the late hit. At 0, it's already doing... Like, this is as low as it can go, because Marth is at 0. It's already doing 25 knockback. So if we just increase Marth, like, just the littlest bit, like, now he's at 9%, which I guess is not a insignificant amount of percent, but at just simply, you know, 9%, which is usually just like a less than like a singular aerial, it already is now doing more than enough where it is now floor huggable, because it's going to do enough that the Sakurai angle is going to send it at that 44-degree angle instead. But it is something to keep in mind for certain percentages and matchups and etc. And that was just the example of Fox Nair with all sorts of different moves. It all really depends at the end of the day, so it's all situationally dependent. But those are the ways that you can beat floor hug yourself and counteract it. So it's not an infallible strategy, it's not perfect, but it is very, very strong, and definitely something that A, you should try to incorporate into your game and defensive play, and B, try to look out for when your opponents are doing it, because it's very powerful. So the final thing I want to talk about is how we can combine both ASDI floor hugging with crouch canceling. So, for example, crouch canceling, again, quick refresher, just if you're in the crouching or crouch wait, it's kind of state, you'll take less knockback and less hit lag. But what this means is, for example, if I do, oops, that was the wrong one. I always get these mixed up. I'm gonna do 45%. Fox now has 45%, and I'm gonna have more forward air. So let's try to floor hug this. Bam, I'm able to. It didn't cause tumble, therefore I can do my little soft landing and counteract. Classic floor hug. However, what if I simply just went 1% more up? I was at 45. Let me go to 46. Let's see what happens here. I forgot my percents, of course. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, there we go. If I went just a little bit higher, now I'm at 47. I'm going to try to floor hug it. But now it causes tumble. And so I can't do my little soft landing counter strategy. The best I'm going to be able to do is just teching it. Oh, whoops. The only reason that worked there is because the save state was saved at not the right percent. This should work now. So, you know, the best I'm going to be able to do is say, like, tech it or, you know, whatever you can do. So you might think that, like, well, wait a minute. So if I'm just at 47, I can't floor hug it anymore. Or I can't do, like, a soft landing floor hug anymore. However, you can, because let's say I start crouching. And now he's going to hit me with a fair. And now, because I am reducing my knockback by 0.67, it's going to go under the tumble threshold again. It won't knock me into tumble, and therefore I get the soft landing floor hug, and I can counter again. So I can actually demonstrate that as well by doing, I will do Marth Fair, do ID 0, versus a Fox at, I will do 47. So normally, without anything, this will do 80 knockback units, which is just barely enough to cause tumble and knockdown because it's slightly above 80. But if I now activate crouching, what will happen is it gets reduced by 0.67. Now it's at 5.3, below the 80 tumble threshold. So I don't go into tumble, I don't have to tech it or get knocked down. I can simply do soft landing floor hug, and bam. And again, because just by, while I'm waiting here and standing, if I press down, I immediately go into squat. Even if I do this like right before getting hit, it'll still work. Because, bam, I'm in squat, I get crouch cancel. Or like even here, I'm literally in the very next frame I'm going to get hit. But if I now hold down in the next frame, you're not able to see it, but I was entering squat, but then I got interrupted by the hit. But the game is like, oh, you were in squat though. So here's that knockback reduction. And bam, floor hug. However, if I say squat it down and then I let go of it, and now I'm in the animation where I'm stepping up from it, I go back into, oh. Yeah, he basically, you get the idea. I don't know what was going on there where the squat, I don't know why that was working. I'm just gonna assume it's some weird Uncle Punch jank or something like that. But you can only CC during squat and squat weight. Trust me, I've seen like 6 different sources that say that, so surely it must be true. No, it is. I don't really know what was happening there. But basically the idea is that I am combining these two. Crouch canceling will let me floor hug, just a like do like a soft floor hug, just like a little bit longer. But something to keep in mind is that the only reason this is actually working is because to crouch cancel, you have to hold down. But if you're holding down, that means you are inputting an ASDI in the downward direction. So you're actually combining both CC and floor hugging in this instance. And I can even demonstrate this by, if I crouch, and I'm holding down, so I just crouch canceled it. I'm going to hold up on the C stick, so I ASDI up. Notice how I don't get the floor hug, because I ASDI'd upwards instead of downwards. So it wasn't able to do it. So this is a big reason why CC and floor hugging, ASDI down, whatever you want to call it, get very confused very often, because they kind of go hand in hand, and you can combine them in the two, and also they both basically just involve holding the downward direction, so it definitely can be confusing. But all you need to know is that crouch canceling, so getting hit while in squat or squat weight, that just reduces knockback and hit lag, and that's all it does. It does nothing more. Anything that lets you go from being hit like this to doing this kind of soft landing and counteracting, that is a floor hug. That is ASDI down. That is all because of ASDI. In this instance, it is only because of the reduced knockback of crouch canceling that I'm able to ASDI down. But the actual action of snapping down to the ground and being able to counter like this, that was ASDI down. So that is what differentiates these two techniques. But as you can see, you can still combine them and get really good results. I'm now able to do like a soft floor hug of this way later percent than I could normally do. But it's not as useful as you might think, because for example, if I'm just simply like dashing around, I can't crouch out of this. If I'm in the middle of doing an attack, I can't crouch during this. If I'm shielding, I can't crouch during this. Jumping, jump squat, I can't crouch during this. You get the idea. So that's why, like, true actual, like, crouch canceling in neutral is actually pretty rare, because you kind of have to, like, really set it up. You have to kind of stop what you're doing and start to crouch down. So most of the time, this is why floor hugging just is so much better, because since it can be done anytime you're in hit lag, no matter what state you were previously in, you can just basically activate it whenever. And that's what makes it so powerful. So that is pretty much a summary of all of this stuff. The final thing to go over that I want to talk about is, where can you get a lot of this information? Where do you know all of these, like, angles of the moves, or all of these, like, knockback values and everything? The truth is, I don't. I looked them up. So, first site I'm going to recommend, highly recommend, is fightcore.gg. It has all the characters in the game, and you can look at their moves, the hitboxes, information on the startup, the end lag, the IASA frames, the damage, the angle of the move. I'll use Fox as an example. I'll do, say, like, Fox up tilt. So this tells me the startup of it, shows the hitboxes, you can frame advance it, pause it, etc. It shows you what each different ID does. So, for example, hitting the purple hitbox does 9 damage, whereas hitting the red hitbox, which I think is like underneath one of these or something, does 12, etc., etc. But also, it shows you the angle. Now, it can be a little confusing, because you're like, well, shoot, what is 80 degrees? I know it sounds obvious, but for the purposes of Smash, it's basically, think of it as like, if you were facing towards the right, it would be 0, up is 90, left is 180, and then down is 270. So FightCore, very useful. Lots of information, hitboxes, everything you can find about all the characters. Another very useful resource is, I've been showing it throughout the whole tutorial, I Need Data and their calculator app. Very useful. You can look at all sorts of characters' moves and see, different parts of the move, the IDs, damage, angle. See, this here tells me Sakurai angle, even shows me a little display for it. This one will show me, say, like 85 versus 13, or 13 damage, 85 angle, knockback growth, set knockback, etc., etc. You can see the amount of damage it does, how it gets affected by staling. You can like add crouch canceling to it, a bunch of different attributes actually. Set the DI, all sorts of stuff. So this is a great way to both visualize stuff and also just get quick information about moves like damage and angle, and do quick calculations of their damage. Pressing the O hotkey also brings up this thing where it shows basically like the game's calculations that it does to like do all of this stuff. Which is real nerd shit, but like still useful if you really need to lab or like look deep into stuff. It looks like a very intimidating website, and trust me, there is a lot here, but they actually have a really nice tutorial linked on the YouTube. So if you ever want to check it out, give it a try. Very useful. And then finally, a very underrated resource, in my opinion, is actually the Smash Wiki. So every character in Melee on the Smash Wiki has their own like page. This is specifically Fox for SSBM. And if you scroll down, obviously this entire page has all sorts of information, but what's really useful is they actually have the moveset listed here. And what you can do is for every character, you can click on any of these attacks and it pulls up a separate little page, and it actually has a lot of really nice information. It tells you a cool little overview about it, some miscellaneous information. Sometimes it has like strategies included, but this is really the main useful stuff here. Is similar to FoxCord. It gives you a lot of information, but it gives you some information that FoxCord doesn't actually include. So for example, it includes they both tell you the angle, but this one shows like a nice like direction to help visualize it. The negative is that it does have the old school style hitboxes where they're all colored the same, so it's kind of hard to tell apart which one is which. But it has really good information about clanging and rebounding, as well as does a hitbox hit ground opponents or aerial opponents. These are two subjects that we can maybe go into another time, but still very useful information to have, and show some cool timing, showing the like hitboxes and stuff for say like the aerials and stuff. Shows like differences between like L canceling and etc., like when auto cancel is, stuff like that. So it's still a very good resource overall, but I'd say all three of these have different uses and purposes for sure. So feel free to check them out and try them and everything like that. But overall, the data is out there, the resources out there. Melee is really cool in the fact that it's the same game from 2001, so all this information will forever be true. It will never be updated or different. So yeah, that's pretty much everything. That's everything I want to go over about CC, SDI, ASDI, what you can use them for, what makes CC and floor hugging so different. And yeah, the only final thing I wanted to go over was actually recently in the FoxCord, I posted something where I showed how you can like beat Young Link's up B by a way to counter Young Link's up B if you get hit by it by just like using ASDI to of course I can't do it right now because I'm bad, but how you can like escape it with ASDI and etc. The only reason I bring this up is because, for example, Gent actually responded to that and said like, oh wow, I actually had no idea you could do this. So you might think that the only reason I do that is because I like looked it up or I found like an old like Smashboards post about it. But no, actually the way I discovered this is I literally just went here into Uncle Punch, and within like just a little bit of time of messing with it and everything, I was just able to find out that this is what you can do, and this is a like solution to that problem. But the reason I bring this up is because by having a strong knowledge of the game's mechanics and how it works, you can do really good labbing and really good like problem solving, because the only reason I was able to find this solution so quickly is because I have this knowledge of how SDI works, and I applied that knowledge to this situation to find a solution to a problem. So for the most part, well, a lot of this really technical stuff and everything like that, you don't necessarily need to like memorize or know super deep down, or like, you know, it is honestly, at the end of the day, it is mostly nerd shit. As long as you understand the basic idea of like, I can floor hug this as long as it's this percent, blah blah blah. You can keep it basic like that for sure. But I honestly believe that having this kind of solid grasp of just how all of these things synergize together can help you look at the game not only deeper, but if you come across a problem where you're confused and you're like, I don't really understand how this works, or like, what can I do about this, you can potentially come to the conclusion like on your own, or try to figure it out, or come up with like your own like creative solution of what you can do for it, which is both a really rewarding feeling and also just like, you know, very practical, very useful. But that being said, there's also nothing wrong with just asking other people and asking for help. That's a really important thing. This community is very collaborative, very like, we all work together and everything like that. So if you're ever not sure about something or have questions, feel free to ask. I'm happy to always answer more like technical details about how Smash works like this, because I love this shit. This stuff is really interesting and very fun to me. But I hope this was able to help, and I hope that just like, you know, you're really able to learn something from this, and by having a kind of like grasp of how this all works, it not only will make more sense when you're playing, but, you know, in the future, if you find yourself in a situation where you're like, oh, like my opponent keeps doing this, I like don't know what I can do about it. If you have you know, enough knowledge, you might be able to figure it out. So I appreciate everybody watching. If there are any more questions or anything, feel free to hit me up. When I initially recorded this and did like the lesson live, pretty much no one ended up asking questions. Everyone was like, no, like I kind of get it, or like if I have anything I'll ask afterwards. So thankfully this re-recording shouldn't really miss anything, so it should be all good. Later.